All right, friends, happy Saturday to you. Your neighborhood spaceman here, Aaron Michael Eschenberg, bringing you some honest astrology for Saturday, the 20th of July, 2019. We've got the moon in Pisces all day. Now, the moon's not going to make its conjunction to Neptune until early tomorrow morning. So it's kind of free of that, but it's like headed there. It's like headed toward this expansion, headed toward this expansion. What does the moon need? The emotional moon. It's just like we're getting ready for our journey. We're getting ready for our voyage, which comes Monday. So we're in a reflective mode. We're in a time to just rest. We're in a time to review, a time to think about, it's like, all right, this has just been 1 month, 1 month calendar as the moon goes around. It's the end of the zodiac right now. And Pisces is the completion of the zodiac before we go into Aries, right? Where the moon is going on Monday, which is why we have a new journey Monday. So this weekend, it's just like it's time to think, time to sit back and be like, all right, what has happened this past month? What new information has come up? What can I inform myself? What can I do differently on this next journey? What knowledge has happened this past cycle that I can bring with me on the next one, right? So it's very reviewing time. And let's go to the chart here. And of course, Mercury, boom, we're back here in Cancer, okay? So now we're more introspective. We're more internal in our thoughts and our communication. We're staying closer to home, right? Moon's is Earth natural satellite. Cancer is the ruling sign of the moon, or this sign associated with the moon, right? So we have this stellium here right now. We've got Mercury, we've got the Sun, we've got Venus, and of course the North Node. This is telling us where we need to be in our place of authenticity and vulnerability and keeping it real, leading with our emotions, but yet not being overly emotional. That's what this kind of stuff is up here. Is like this is our 10th house, our public image. This is the way that we govern ourselves. Saturn is restructuring up here with the South Node. I know you can't see it on this chart, but the South Node is right here at 16 degrees, opposite of the North Node. So it's right here, 16 degrees, and then transformative Pluto. So it's just like, okay, we're restructuring, we're releasing, we're letting go of these old karmic patterns, these old karmic beliefs. Yeah. Like that thing I said the other day, the steak and spirulina. It's just like we get much more protein out of spirulina than steak. Obviously, steak tastes better to a lot of people than spirulina does. But it's just like with this new knowledge comes this new, new structuring and ability, how we can, govern ourselves on a daily basis. And then we've got, Pluto up here, as we get to transform this. And then we're creating this sextile. Now, this sextile with the moon comes early tomorrow. So we're leading up there today, okay? So it's like today is the preparation for the release tomorrow, and tomorrow is the preparation for the journey on Monday. Okay, then Monday is the new journey, the new voyage, okay, for the month ahead. So we also have, of course, Mercury retrograde, and the only real connection that the moon is making today is this quincunx to Mars. All right, now Mars is our leader. Mars is our planet of acceleration, our planet of go, of how we get things. Venus is what we want. The moon is what we need. Mars is how we get it. And Mercury is how we use our thought process to communicate, to think about it. A little fly in here. To think about these things, to determine what way do I go to get these. Well, Mercury is now in emotional Cancer. So it's just like, well, how do I go about getting what I need to get? It's like, okay, I need to be emotional. I need to be, more down here, not thinking like, how do I win this over? Do I do it with, Mars is in Leo, and do I do it with my, it's Leo's our creative self-expression, right? It's our ego. It's how we dress ourselves, our style, our hair, and all of these things. So it's like, we're not getting what we need because of those things right now. It's just like our leader of Mars is accelerating in Leo. So it's like we have this courage, courage of the lion to move forward to get things done. But it's not how we're really achieving what we want by our own personal ego. That's why the moon is quincunxing here, that 512 is the annoying aspect. Quincunx, just think of it again, it's like that. It's like it's right here. You can see my hand here, and I can see it in this other monitor, but I cannot see my hand out of my peripheral. So when I turn like this, but I know it's there. It's like a car in your blind spot. That's what a quincunx aspect is like. So it's just like Mars is saying, move forward, do this, let's go, let's get this show on the road, it's summertime, and all this. And the moon's like, yeah, I need a break, dude. I know it's Saturday. I know you want to go to the beach. I know you want to do all of these things. I need to rest. I need to, I need to go within right now. Like, it's not just always, party and ecstasy, not the drug, but ecstasies and bliss, party and bliss. There's like, it's a very important time to reflect. It's a very important time, like we talked about last week. If you've been following along, it's just like depression. There's a key to depression. There's something within it that's saying like, okay, I'm accelerating in a wrong area here, and I need to come back. I need to come into myself. I need to feel whole in myself, and kind of sit here with myself and figure out what's going on before I can make my next steps forward. And that's kind of this energy. Not that we are depressed or have to be depressed. If we are, it's perfectly okay right now. It's perfectly okay, because whatever you're feeling is the key. Okay, and that key, it's just, maybe we're just turning the lock. Maybe we're gripping it for the first time and saying, okay, this lower feeling, or, so many of us can blame Mercury's retrograde. Oh, we've got all these planets in retrograde right now. It's like, this happens every year. Mercury retrogrades 3 times a year, and it happens for almost a month at a time. It's over a month between its retrograde and its shadow period is over a month. So it's like, are you saying 3 months out of the year you're blaming Mercury for your life? No, we're not allowing that anymore. Again, that's part of like sinking down here and like our own expansion. If we're going to expand completely, if we're going to expand to put us on the path that we need, we're not blaming anything anymore. We're not blaming anyone anymore. And that's something we've really heavily talked about this past week, is like, we are, in the driver's seat. We are the one behind the wheel. We are the ones that I'm beating my own heart, right? I'm beating my heart. I'm not beating anybody else's heart. Now, I'm not thinking about beating my heart, but yet it happens. It's an involuntary thing that's going on for me. So just like all the things that I manifest in my life, I manifest whether I want them or not. Like, this relationship ended. Did I really want that relationship? I know, I really loved her, but it, you know what I mean? But it's just like, things, and it puts me on this new path. And it's like, okay, would follow. Now, I'm not in a relationship that's so old ago, but I'm just saying, like, things happen and puts us on a path, right? And like I talked about, I will bring that up, a relationship I had in 2015, the most traumatic experience when we separated for me, and I talked about this the other day. What if our greatest, what the worst thing that happened to us was really the best thing that happened to us, shifting our perspective. This was on Friday. So it's just like, to me, that was the most traumatic experience of my life, like separating from this woman I loved dearly, but it's like, wow, what happened the years to follow that was just like, oh my God, did I lose somebody else but found myself? Yes. It's like, holy smokes. Maybe in disguise, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me in my life, and where I am now to where I was then, And to still reflect back and say, yes, that love was authentic, that love was real, but there's a new sense of self in this journey, right? So it's just like, as we're coming across this journey, and again, and not blaming, not criticizing, not pointing the finger at one another of you this and me this, and that's what's led to this. It's like, hey, this is part of our expansion, all right? This is part of our expansion. This is the intangible part of Pisces. You can't quite put your finger on it. You want to say, well, it happened because of this, or this led me here. Trauma is, to me, astrology, I love dealing with like trauma and with people, because we can look and we can pinpoint. And that's what folks want to do so often, is we want to pinpoint something. This one particular instance, this one thing has led me and spiraled my life this way. And this one thing here has closed me off this way, and my heart is calloused. I'm not saying me right now, I'm just, individuals, they can say, oh, well, this relationship didn't work out, my heart is calloused, and now these things, and I can't trust, and I can't open up to love. It's like, okay, so we can trace it back to this one point. Can we shift that perspective? Like, look, all of these beautiful things have happened since then. Had this not happened, this wouldn't have happened. Had this not happened, all of these wonderful things wouldn't happen. So this is a really great day to kind of like, whoa, see that bigger picture. No manure, no magic. It's like a checkerboard, the black squares, the white squares, the black squares, the white squares, and they're evenly around all of them. And it's just like, it's very closed-minded for us to think that the black squares are bad events and the white squares are positive events, okay? This is all for the greater good. These are all just moves on the board. These are all just, one step in the next direction. So it's not a negative or a positive. It just is. And now we get to look at everything. We can sit down today. We can meditate, really go inward, and see that, like the expansion of this beauty, this all is for the greater good, all is for the higher purpose. And then here's one thing, this is how I'm going to end this on. When we see things as finite, when we see things, like let's just coming back here, because we live in both of these worlds. This here is the third dimension. This is reality, quote unquote. Okay, we live here in the third dimension of reality. We are defined by the laws of Saturn. And then here, this is like, this is the limitless. This is the intangible. This is the waves. This is the particles. If you guys know what I'm talking about, Einstein's wave versus particle theory. When the scientists looked for waves, they found waves. When they looked for particles, they found particles. And then the ones that were trying to find particles couldn't see the waves. The ones that were trying to see the waves couldn't see the particles. And they asked each other, well, hey, you look for the waves in the particles, and we'll look for the particles in the waves. And by all golly, they found them. It's just like, so the scientists that didn't believe in the particles, that only saw waves, found them. They were able to see them. Once they were looking for them, they were able to find that thing. So Saturn is our third dimension. This is the laws that we live in. But yet, the unconscious mind doesn't live by the laws of the third dimension. Our emotional body, you can't measure the emotion, You can't measure how much I love or how much you love something. That tool of measurement in science doesn't exist yet, right? So, as we're getting ready to voyage out on a new journey, let's think. I'm not a huge sports guy, but you can look at this as sports or like a chef show that there's cooking and there's a timeline, there's a countdown. When we see that clock, that's a manifestation of this third dimension, this reality. Now again, my emotions are real. My thoughts are real, my dreams are real, my imagination is real, but yet they're not a part of this third dimension. They're not a part of this physical reality. This is a very intangible thing. This is the wave aspect, okay? We live both. We live a Neptunian and a Capricornian, a Saturnian and a Neptunian life, you know what I mean? And now old astrology say, well, Neptune is the dreams and the unconscious mind, and Saturn and Capricorn, this is the third dimension, this is reality. And now it's just like we like to think, well, Saturn is the illusion that this reality exists, and Neptune, this lack of the third dimension, is the real reality. Do you get that? So these are false things. This clock counting down. Well, I only have so much time to do this. I only have so much time. So going back to this sports analogy, it's just like sometimes we can feel pressure on ourselves, whether that we're cooking in the kitchen or like a countdown clock to a ball game. All right, and all of a sudden we're looking at the opponent's scoreboard. We're looking at the time clock, which is an opponent. Okay, we're fighting the clock. We're fighting how much time we have before we're done, right? Did we get accomplished what we needed to get accomplished? Do I feel good about that? No, So it's just like when we see this clock, when we see the other person's points, there's a different pressure on ourselves. Sometimes that can be a beneficial. Sometimes, when we put that pressure on things, the coal turns to a diamond. Sometimes, though, we psych ourselves out. So if you're playing this game as if there is no opponent, there is no scoreboard, and the only real challenge is yourself. It's like when you take that pressure, which is imaginary. It's imaginary pressure. That pressure is not real. If you're down by 5 or whatever sport you think, if you're down and we've only got a few minutes left, there's a pressure. There's a defeating. There's either an overcoming feeling, or there's like, I don't know if I can do this, and you know what I mean, and I've got to make it up for this, and that pressure that we put on ourselves. But it's again, what I'm saying is this is imaginary. That pressure is imaginary. And even if you're using it to fuel yourself, it's still imaginary. It's still imaginary. If you're playing the game as if there is no clock and there is no other team, and your whole thing is just to keep your eye on the objective, is just to score as many buckets as possible. or to stop the other team from scoring as many buckets as possible. You know, if that's like your objective, then the time disappears. Then the other person's score disappears. You're just functioning on what you need and your sole purpose, right? So it's just like when we're focused on our sole purpose, when we're focused on what we need to do, and everything else disappears, we're more in tune with ourselves to play a better game. You see how that works? You know, there's no longer the imaginary pressure of the other team, of the clock, of these things, so I can stay focused on my objective. Now, my objective the next 2 days is to go within, to focus on how I'm going to expand for my journey to come Monday. You know, is a very, very different energy come Monday. So it's like, again, these next 2 days, can we dissolve some of this thinking? Can we dissolve, there is really no other team out there. It's only us. It's only ourselves. There is really no ticking time bomb, you know, time clock. You know, it's just ourselves. So let's sit with that for the day. Let's sit with that for the day. And again, tomorrow's the Neptune conjunction. Tomorrow we're leading greater into our expansion. So today, let's just reflect. You know, let's go in, let's reflect, and it's completely okay. You know, if that's your day, is not being super sociable, not going out. And if you're met it hard, you know, I will say, all right, one more. The last bit, Neptune is starting to square. And later on in the day, Neptune will square the moon. Or I mean, Jupiter. Jupiter will square the moon. So it's like saying, like, hey, I want you to, you know, think of this expansion. Where are we going? Where are we going? But also, like, let's ground this a little bit. Let's use our minds. Let's use our minds, our conscious minds, to help affect this unconscious expansion. Okay, so while we're having a day that we might not be running out, going, you know, partying and all of these things, maybe it's a day that we just read. Maybe it's a day that we, you know, go do the yoga. Maybe it's a day that we, you know, get around our fire with our close friends and kind of, you know, expand our conversation, our communication, up our game as far as what we're absorbing into our mind, what can lead to our expansion, okay? And that's kind of what tomorrow's is about. You know, what can we do to lead into our next step of expansion? What is this last, like, hurdle I have to do before, you know, what is my checklist before I'm ready to really get in the car, drive to the airport, and fly away for the next month, the next 30 days? You know, are we going to have everything that we need to make sure? That's coming tomorrow. So today's still like, all right, kind of relax, have those conversations, bury yourself in a book, read something, watch some sweet YouTube videos that are going to expand your mind, right? We have a choice in all of this. And we get to choose our perspective. We get to choose on what we do for our own expansion. That is the beauty of our day. Happy Saturday, friends. We'll see you tomorrow.